And tonight we'll be focusing on the book of Luke, chapter 5, verse 1 to 11. You'll spend some time, just read the whole chapter there, but I would like us to look at verse 1 all the way to 11 and ask this particular question. Can you recall a time when trusting God with the impossible resulted in something amazing? Trusting God with the impossible. You looked at it and said, this one I don't know, but I will trust God anyway. Now, in this particular passage of scripture, we have a context where Simon, who later on became Simon Peter, had been working hard all night as a fisherman, but caught no fish. He felt discouraged and tired. You can imagine trying to fish, you are not being fruitful in any way, and you realize that I have done zero work the whole night. Yet when Jesus told him to put out into the deep water and let down the nets for a catch, Simon replied, "Because you say so, I will let down the nets." At this point in time, Simon, who later on we know him as Simon Peter, didn't know much about Jesus, but this particular encounter where Jesus was just about to, recruit him to be a fisher of men, he listens to what Jesus is saying and he says, "Because you say so, I will let down the nets." So Simon's obedience is remarkable. As a seasoned fisherman, he knew that fish move to the bottom of the lake when the sun is up, and the drag nets they used could not go deep enough to catch those fish. His willingness to trust Jesus with the impossible. Right now, Jesus is telling me, go launch into the deep. Will I really be successful? But because Jesus has said so, I will do it. Not only did Simon catch a large number of fish, he gained a deeper understanding of who Jesus is. He moved from calling Jesus Master to calling him Lord. And indeed, listening often allows us to see the works of God firsthand and draw closer to him. Perhaps God is calling you to let down your nets again. You've been working on this project. You've been doing this business. I don't know how many years. You've been on this marriage, working on this marriage. Some years, things may not be working out the way you had anticipated. The marriage is on the rocks. But Jesus is still telling you, take your nets and launch into the deep. Will you say, because you said so, I will do it? Well, tonight I also want to ask you this question. Can you relate to Peter when his first impulse was to question the knowledge of Jesus on fishing? Because, of course, we are told here and there that, of course, when we read the Bible, we realize that Jesus had his father Joseph, who was a carpenter. So we assume that he was mostly at the carpenter's shop, but was in the workshop. But one thing I've come to learn, how Peter came to realize now that Jesus is just not only a master, he's also Lord. And he had to come to this realization that he is speaking to the one who owns the sea, the one who owns the ocean. You could be owning that particular boat, that particular ship, but the one who owns the ocean knows where the fish is. And Peter may have wondered, Jesus is a remarkable rabbi, a teacher, but how can he show someone who knows the waters of Galilee how to fish them? Peter was experienced in this, but God is the one who is over. He knows everything. There is nothing that is too hard for him. There is nothing that is hidden from him. We might think of that situation or that particular, thing that you are looking out to do. It may seem so difficult, so intricate, but in the eyes of God, it is possible. What followed became a reason for Peter and friends to follow Jesus, because ultimately he was recruited to be among the disciples who were not now fishing the fish, they were fishing men. And by obeying the teacher's words, a bad night of fishing turned into one of the biggest catches of their lives. I don't know where you are at, but have you had Jesus speak to you regarding a certain situation? Have you had Jesus speaking to you regarding your marriage, your business, your academics, your project that you have been working on for quite some time? Because Jesus has said, obey me regarding this and this and that. Just say, because you say so, I will do it.